Creek is such an attractive investment proposition for a number of reasons, but probably the primary one is the potential for near-term copper production from the Pilbara, and it's a polymetallic project, so predominantly copper, but also zinc production, so two key energy metals that we'll be producing. The project itself is located in a well-established mining region in the Pilbara. So it sits between Port Hedland and Karratha on the Northwest Highway. It's a brownfield site, so already well established. And as a result of it being a brownfield site, we were able to develop the project with a relatively low capex, and to sort of improve on that, we're using technology that will help us continue to reduce the capex. So we've got a number of these sort of very positive attributes to the project: low capex, near-term copper, near-term zinc out of the Pilbara. So I think that really differentiates us from most of our peers. There are very few new opportunities for copper production in Australia, and I'm talking about within the next 18 months. And I think just to round out on that, Anglo American have offered us financing for the project subject to the outcomes of the upcoming DFS. And so clearly they believe that near-term copper production is quite achievable. And that's very exciting for us. We've had a big year in 2022, just as we did in 2021. So we started the year off delivering an updated scoping study, which has really been the platform for our definitive feasibility study, which is nearing completion. That scoping study demonstrated a very robust project showing cash flows of close to 300 million, capital development costs of around about 60 million. So really hit the ground running, knowing full well that that was going to be the platform for the DFS. With the DFS, we are very advanced with it. While we had expected to deliver the DFS by the end of the year, through the process of rolling it out, it became clear to us that there was considerable upside in two underground mines at the high-grade Evelyn deposit and the high-grade Salt Creek deposit. So we elected to complete the underground studies on those before, I guess, sort of releasing an enhanced DFS, if you like, which will come out early next year. In terms of other key milestones that we've achieved, we have got our mining proposal for Monkapri approved. That means that we can commence mining at Monkapri, which is where the critical mass of ore is for our project. We also got a works approval to commence processing at site with the existing infrastructure. So these are stepping stones to getting the full permitting to get going. These are significant milestones, and we expect that we'll get the approvals for the second stages of the mining proposal and works approvals, which will enable us to effectively start the project early in Q1 next year. And then we've also made really good progress in terms of our community involvement. We've sort of really rolled up our sleeves on that, and I'm very pleased to be able to report hot off the press that we have just heard that the Whim Creek Hotel redevelopment has received a grant from the Pilbara Development Corporation. That's on the back of a huge amount of work that we have done with the Ngarluma people in securing that grant. So the grant is for the Ngarluma Corporation, but we've been very much part of the process of securing that. So what that means is the process of redeveloping the Whim Creek Hotel is well underway, and we really look forward to being part of that process. It'll turn into an accommodation hub, a hotel with a camp. We'll obviously we plan to house our workforce at the camp, but it means that we'll have a significant impact on on the regional accommodation, and it's great to be able to be working with the Nalama people on this. So there's very exciting potential at Whim Creek, and I'm pleased to be able to say that we have already completed our first exploration program, and we're waiting on final results to be able to announce the outcome of that exploration program. So the potential at Whim Creek is multifaceted. There's the copper zinc, so the VMS style mineralization, which we would put into the near mine bucket of exploration, if you like. So looking at for other VMS deposits, and people will know that these VMS deposits come in clusters, and that's clearly demonstrated by our group of resources at Whim Creek. They're effectively a cluster of VMS deposits, and every expectation that we'll find more of those. There are targets that we are having a look at, and as I say, we've done a little bit of drilling, more near mine exploration, so very close to the existing resources. Then we start talking about the blue sky exploration, which is probably primarily gold. People will be familiar that Anax's tenure sits on the western boundary of the De Grey tenure. And just to put things into perspective, the De Grey tenure covers 150 kilometers east to west, and they have multiple deposits across that tenure. Their critical mass is obviously at Hemi, but there are many deposits across that 150 kilometers. And we are on their western boundary, as I say. So we sit within this sort of emerging gold province, and there are many geological characteristics on our tenure that are similar to the De Grey tenure. So again, every expectation that we could come up with a new gold discovery, and we'll continue to look for that blue sky potential. It's not the primary focus for Anax. We are obviously focused on monetizing the current resources, but there is exciting exploration potential. And then just to wrap that up, we have, through a very rigorous and systematic geochem exercise over the last 2 years, we've been doing this ultrafine soil sampling, which is a technique that's emerging as a very useful technique, and many of our peers in the Pilbara are using it. We've not only turned up a number of gold and precious metal prospects. So I say precious metal, that's PGM prospects. So both on our western and eastern boundaries, we have significant anomalous PGM zones. But we've also turned up some interesting nickel cobalt anomalies. So we've really got the whole suite, and we'll continue to look at the exploration in parallel with the rolling out and the development of the Whim Creek project. So to answer that question, I'll just put a bit of context around how I'm sort of forming my views, obviously in amongst many people on the supply side. And we're fortunate to be members of the International Copper Association, and I was across meeting with them in Sydney last week. So I've got some really useful insights into particularly the copper supply side, and I'll share a little bit of that in a minute. Just want to say on the demand side, I think everyone's probably across the fact that copper is a critical energy metal, and that the demand will continue to grow as the green revolution, if you like, continues to gather momentum. So I think on the demand side, there's obviously a bit of noise at the moment, but in terms of the global economic situation, but that seems to be settling down, and the demand from green requirements is continuing to grow. So every expectation that on the demand side, copper will continue to grow quite significantly. It's the supply side that's interesting and far more difficult for the market to be able to judge and assess. I think that the market often gets it wrong, and certainly the feedback from last week is that the market had been factoring in a slight surplus next year, and all indications are that that won't occur. That in fact, projections, the analyst projections, have been in excess of what's actually going to happen, particularly in South America. The African projects seem to have performed reasonably well, but South American projects are all sort of 10 to 15% below where the projections were. The upshot of that is that there is likely to now no longer be a surplus next year. And when you couple that with the visible global stockpiles, and I say visible, so those on COMEX and LME, which are at virtually all-time lows, it makes for an interesting start to next year. So there certainly could be a strong uptick in the copper price next year. But more importantly, longer term, it is all about the supply side not being able to keep up with demand. And there's this interesting dilemma with the green revolution again. You've sort of got these diametrically opposing forces. The demand on copper just gets greater and greater. But on the other side of the equation, the headwinds created by more and more onerous environmental conditions makes development of new projects more and more difficult. And of course, this is not only in the copper space, but in the copper space, we're seeing that the time to get projects into development is just getting longer and longer. It's getting more costly. So the upshot of all of that is the supply side will continue to struggle to keep up with demand. And we see ourselves so well positioned in that equation, if you like, because we have a strategy to monetize assets that are known, where we can use this technology overlay. And so we're really playing into an event that everyone can see coming, where supply is just going to be more and more difficult to deliver on. And we're demonstrating at Whim Creek that we can get an asset that was overlooked previously to become a very valuable asset. And we'll continue to look at doing that on other assets as well. So for 2023, again, we've got a big year ahead. Lots of targets to meet. The biggest target is, of course, getting Whim Creek into a development phase. So what that means is we plan to complete the definitive feasibility study. We expect that'll be around about end of Q1 next year. We expect that the approvals, the permitting will take place through Q1 and into Q2 next year. And all of that will enable us to have a final investment decision in potentially Q2 next year. That would be the focus. Of course, since we are already discussing financing with Anglo American, that makes that path somewhat simpler. Again, all contingent on the DFS. But those are the three key elements for the first part of next year. In addition to that, the Whim Creek pub as our accommodation hub is very important. We've really got a head of steam up on that, so we'll continue to focus working with the Nalama owners of that asset. So there's lots to roll out on that. On the exploration front, we will continue to look at the blue sky potential, and we will aim to do some more exploration drilling through next year, although it'll probably be later in the year. And I guess finally, but very importantly, we intend to look at rolling out the Whim Creek strategy on other assets, and both regionally. So we expect that Whim Creek will become a processing hub, and there are a number of assets around us that we've identified that could become satellite feeds into Whim Creek. And so we'll look to do deals on some of those assets to continue to grow the scale of Whim Creek through a processing hub satellite deposit type arrangement. And then we're also looking at other assets that we believe we can roll out a similar strategy on, and essentially leverage up Anax to be a multi-project company. And I think we've come really a long way in just over 2 years since acquiring Whim Creek, when we deliver the definitive feasibility study, and it's very clear to the market that we are able to deliver leveraged outcomes on assets such as Whim Creek. We'll hopefully get ahead of steam up on some other projects as well, and get a following to get us to become a multi-project company.